Welcome to the Road Bogues podcast. You know who we are. No need for introductions. Pro, what's going on?
Bogues, you sure they know who the fuck we are?
Let's hope.
Sometimes I think we're going into a one-way mic here.
Yeah, it's episode 66. So I'm guessing we're getting close to 10,000 within 2 weeks of posting. So first week we get 6, 7, 8,000, and then peaks at about 10. So not too bad.
Bogues, I'm out in LA here, I told you. And, it's a different fucking world out here, dude. I went food shopping today, and I'm fucking in the cereal aisle, of course, because that's what all fat people go. And I got a box of Fruity Pebbles with a Nike logo on it. So Nike is officially sponsoring Fruity Pebbles and cereal.
What?
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what, I heard a little side story that Adidas came to him and they said, "Hey, Fred Flintstone, do you want Adidas logo on there?" He goes, "Nah, we heard Wiz Cambridge is an Adidas athlete, so yabba dabba fuck no, we're not going to fucking with them. We're going to Nike. Team Nigeria, baby."
Wow. Yeah, solid backstory. It's somewhat believable, but Nike sponsoring high sugar cereals is very, very interesting, Pro.
Well, I support Nike as far as wearing their product because A, it's the only thing that fits me, and B, now their logos on cereal. How great is that?
2-in-1 for you. Beautiful.
Yeah, 2-in-1. Yeah.
Beautiful. Not a lot going on here, Pro. We just had our election yesterday, so.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
It went all right. I mean, it's pretty predictable what was going to happen. Our kind of Prime Minister at the time got taken out. He's gone, and we've got in my opinion, a Biden light. So it'll be a fun ride. There'll be a lot of great content coming the next couple of years from this fella, I reckon. But I think
from you.
Huh?
From you? No, not you.
It's going to be great. Yeah, I love it. It's great for content creators because he'll make a gaff a week. It was interesting. Just our voting's a little bit different than you guys over there. So it's mandatory to vote here, or they fine you, which is interesting. And yeah, all done. So we'll see what direction we're going. I anticipate a lot more taxes coming in and a lot more expensive cost of living, much similar to what's going on over there in your neck of the woods, Pro. So we'll watch that space, but enough politics. Let's move on to the basketball. Let's wrap up. I want to wrap up both Game 7s because we obviously had the opportunity to talk about them pre the games, and then now we can talk about it post. But Dallas Phoenix. Pro got this one right. You picked Dallas for the series. You had it at 4-2. I had Phoenix at 4-3. Obviously, if it was going 7, we both agreed it would probably go to Phoenix. But gee, no one saw this coming. The blowout in Game 7 was beyond shocking to me. Usually these games are Game 7 grind. It's kind of a lower scoring game, but Dallas just came out and beat the shit out of Phoenix and. They punched them early, and Phoenix just didn't have anything to punch back. It was kind of you. I don't know if you were watching the game like me, like waiting, like when's the punch going to come? And then you look at the halftime score. What was it, 57-20 something? And you're like, there's no punch coming. Like they have nothing in the tank at all. So much so that the Suns fans were booing them and leaving early, this is a Game 7 of a conference semifinals, and the fans were bailing on their team. It was a horrendous performance. Would you put it down to Phoenix just being horrible or Dallas being that good, or a mix of both?
I think a mix of both, Bogues. I mean, I sort of I didn't see that coming, of course. I don't think anybody did as far as the point spread. But I think that you saw that it was trickling in some of these games in the series that, again, like Phoenix would hit them with hard punches. And you'd think they were, all right, it's finally coming. Phoenix is going to come. I'm talking about in the series, not Game 7. But like Dallas always answered the bell. And, it just, they never really had that great game that you're like, yeah, Phoenix Suns, like, okay, going next step. I always thought that Dallas was going to take it. And, Chris Paul just had a terrible end of these series, like the last 4 or 5 games. I mean, he was not like himself. And I mean, they needed him. I mean, look, as good as Booker is, as good as Ayton is, they needed him, and they needed him to step up, and he didn't do it. And look, nothing against him. People are allowed to have bad series.
We saw who the Suns were pre-Chris Paul, right? No one had them being this good this quickly. So Chris Paul's you make a valid point there, but just a crazy series. I mean, Luka for this series, 32, 10, and 7 a night. Remember, 34% from the three, 47% from the field. He actually averaged 2.1 steals in this series, pro, which I saw. I had to kind of take a double take. We're like, what is that? Is that real? But yeah, I mean, he's not a fantastic defender, but he's a smart defender and he's got a high basketball IQ. So he fell into a lot of those. Brunson was pretty solid for them. First couple of games he struggled, and I remember there was a lot of backlash around. Utah didn't have any size to guard Brunson. That's why he dominated. Excuse me, and that Phoenix all of a sudden have size. Brunson can't play like that again. Well, the last 5 odd games he did after a slow start. Dinwiddie was my kind of X factor. I kind of said, if he has a big game, they can steal 7, but he's got to be that guy that gives them another scoring option. And he had 30 in game 7, so that came true. I mean, for Phoenix, Booker 23.4, 4.6 assists, but 4 turnovers a night. Ayton was probably their next best with 15.7 and 8.1 rebounds. Chris Paul, as you mentioned, his numbers were probably his worst playoff series performance from end to end, 13.4 a night, 5.7 assists and 3.1 turnovers. You don't often see a 2-to-1 turnover ratio with Chris Paul. So that was big. Crowder found his 3-ball in this series. He was really the only shining light after I think he shot less than 10% in the first round. He averaged 11 points on 43% from 3 after he couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first round. Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges all but disappeared for most of this series. They were, I don't know what was going on there. They were all over the place. But, I just thought there'd be a bit more fight. You got to give credit to Dallas because I think they just had that belief. They continued to, sustain the runs in numerous games when they were probably could have lost the game here or there. They kept it close, and then in Game 7 it was all she wrote. But impressive performance by the Mavs.
Yeah, defensively, of course, especially they were so good with Dorian Finney-Smith and Kleber. I mean, those two guys are, they just allow them to guard almost anybody. And they played a great game. They don't really have a great shot blocker. I guess Kleber's the best shot blocker for their team, but they just did a great job defensively. They moved the ball. They made perimeter shots. They attacked the basket. Luka's, I think Luka's the best player in the game now. Like it was neck and neck, in my opinion, with him and Durant. And as far as the age and what they can do, I'm not talking about MVP. No, I'm talking about Durant. As far as like player, like
overall.
Yeah, not MVP. Like I understand what the game's missed and all that stuff, but as far as overall player, that I want one guy that's going to get me baskets, that those two guys are neck and neck, and what he's been doing now, building throughout the playoffs, I think he's sort of, in my opinion, the best player in basketball. But it's close, of course. But I mean, that series was great. I mean, the whole playoffs he's been carrying them, outside of the games that he's hurt in Utah. But yeah, he's just a fun player to watch, and he's one of those guys that could put you in position to win because of his passing, his playmaking, and his scoring. There's not a lot of players that could sort of do that. Now, defensively, he lacks, but where he lacks defensively, offensively, and ability to make big shots and big plays and also pass the ball is it's pretty impressive, man. And like you said, Bridges, I expected more out of Bridges than anybody else. Cam Johnson, I could see if Cam Johnson was going to struggle, at time, for one reason or another. But I thought Bridges was going to show more. Of course, Chris Paul's the big talk that, and it was a big talk as far as what he didn't do in the playoffs. But I thought, I thought Bridges was going to show up more, especially somebody who just signed a deal with like $20+ million a year, that he would show up.
That, and he was. I mean, the conversation around having him in Defensive Player of the Year, I think Luka exposed that, right? They couldn't even, and Luka's doing that to most people. Don't get me wrong, but. Yeah, but that was Bridges' opportunity to solidify that, hey, I should have been more, probably in that top 2-3 for Defensive Player of the Year. I didn't get it, but he had his opportunity and squandered it. they just couldn't get it together, and it was just a shame to see them go out like that, because it just, I think they quit. And moving on to that was, reports that DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams got into a. Did you hear about this and read about this?
I did not. This is the first I've heard of it. I have not.
Yeah, so apparently I don't know what they were down in the third or fourth quarter. I think it would have been late in the third, early in the fourth. So Dayton had come out, got subbed out, and he wasn't too happy. And then I guess they're down. What are they down? 30 or 40 at that point. And the reports say that Monty Williams asked Dayton, asked him to go back in the game. DeAndre Ayton, sorry, and he said no. And that's all she wrote. There were rumors from some people sitting courtside that Monty Williams said, Are you really quitting on me right now? You quit on me, man. I can't believe it. You quit on me. And they had some back and forths. And he was asked about kind of that interaction in a post game press conference, and just said that gave a pretty stern fatherly type. That's internal. So why I bring this up is because I think that there was a bit of that. I think Ayton had some games where you felt like he probably should have got more touches. They should have went down to him a little bit more, because he had some games where he was really playing well and finishing down there. And Dallas didn't really have an answer, because they switched 1 through 5. So if you found Dayton down there, he was doing something good with it. But the question is around the extension, right? So he's up for that big extension. Phoenix obviously didn't extend him when they could have last season, right? Last off season. Do you think he hangs around? Do you think they fix this? I mean, Monty Williams seems like he has a history of being a pretty hard-nosed, stubborn guy to an extent, like disciplinarian. But also, I think if anyone can salvage this, it would be him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bogues, I think that, and I'd love your insight on it, because, look, you've been in these things way more than I have. But look, everybody gets a little bit emotional at the end of games like this, end of series like this, and especially how it finished up for those guys in Game 7. No one's happy. Everybody's a little bit on edge. Everybody's pissed. And I could see that sort of happening. First of all, Ayton's sitting there, you're down 35 or 40, your coach asks you to go in the game. Like, come on, man. No, look, in a perfect world, we're talking about, all that stuff. Oh, you want everybody to compete for 48 minutes. Doesn't matter. Never give up, blah, blah, blah. I get it. We've all seen enough, movies, feel good stories and Rudy and stuff to say never quit and all that. But sometimes as a player, and again, I'd like your idea about that. Like, sometimes you're like, come on, man, it's not like it's a second quarter, we're down 35. It's, deep in the game or whatnot. And I understand why Monty Williams would be pissed at him like that. Now, as a coach, I think you got to sort of think of it how they would react, right? As a former player, he would know himself. Like, if a coach asked him down 40 or whatever, come on, you understand why he would probably say no, depending on when he asked him. I don't know exactly when the game he asked, but, that aside, the contract part. Yeah, they didn't extend it last year. I get it. They were trying to feel it out. And look, this is what they're doing. They're using every one of their rights as a team to feel this stuff out, not to give the contract early, to figure some things out. But they could always come back to it. Look, at the end of the day, it's their player, their rights, right? They could still give Ayton more than any other team. So now they could just come back this summer and be like, all right, let's get this contract done and we're good to go. We'll give you whatever it's going to cost. As everybody sees, if Chris Paul is showing age and this is going to decline, which we know at some point it was going to, you can't just have Booker, Crowder, Cam Johnson, Bridges going forward. You need Ayton. As much as bigs aren't valued these days in the league, he's a huge value to them. He's like a David Robinson type. And at times you could see how dominating he is. I don't think he's a top 5 or top 10 player, but I know there are tempers and, everybody's got a little bit of feelings right now as far as what happened, but I think everything's going to be fine. Once you walk away for a little bit, come back to it. Look, they've got till July, right? So right now for the next, few weeks, they could calm it down. He can go to some Caribbean island and chill. And then they can come back to things and be like, all right, look, things got fucked up. We need each other going forward. Everybody's together. Look, Dallas is coming up. Golden State's obviously there. We're right in the mix in the West here. Let's keep it together. We're good to go. Let's put it aside and go forward. Bogues, what do you think about if a coach comes up to you in that situation? What would you do as a player? What would your thought process and answer be, and something like that?
It's a hard one. I've seen, in regular season games, I've seen coaches come kind of towards the end of the bench if we're down 30 or up 30 on numerous teams, and kind of ask a veteran, like say a vet that hasn't got in the game, hey, do you want to get in the game for the last 5 minutes? It's usually a respect thing. You don't put veterans in garbage time, but this is kind of different. It's game 7. I guess Monty probably thought that, even though they weren't, but probably thought we're still in this if we can just get it down to 20 by whatever, right? Whatever the thinking is on that. I don't agree with it in a game 7. I just think the moment and everything's just we're going to be talking about it like people are now, and I think that's what it just accelerates that. If this was a regular season game, I don't think anyone cares as much. But I don't think it stems simply from them being down and him saying like, "Oh, we're out anyway. I'm not going to go play." I think it was the little back and forth they had previously to that had then led to a continuous back and forth. So I don't agree with it. I think, and I think it just for Aiden, I think it's just going to be something now he's got to think about in the summer. Like you never want to hear from your coach that you quit on the team. That's probably the worst thing you can hear, right? You can.
So Ben Simmons-ish almost.
Yeah, but like you can motherfuck me. You can say I'm playing like shit. You can say I need more. What are you doing? You're horrible today. But they're all not as bad as someone saying you quit on us. I think that's I don't know if you'd agree. That's the worst thing you can hear as a player from a coach. So I think that's going to eat at Aiden this offseason. I think he's got some work to do on that. But it's a mistake. Like he's young. Game 7, a lot of pressure. Their fans booing him. It's not an excuse, but we all react differently. And I think he just reacted poorly. He'd probably take it back if he can. But yeah, I'm just wondering if I doubt it affects his contract status. But I think they need him. I agree with you. I think, look, he's a system-orientated player and he suits that system very well. But that if they can get that young core, my question is what they do with CP3. I don't think this is going to be more of the norm for him. He's 37, 38 with a couple of years left on a big deal. I don't think they can expect him to be 35-minute CP3. Like, I think, 25 minutes during the regular season, his numbers are definitely going to go down. Can you count on him in the playoffs in a game 7, in a 7-game series, a grind-out series? And that's the question they've got now. Like, what do you do with that? But the answer is this is what you've got. This is what you've built. You don't have much flexibility now with your cap, especially if you sign Aiden. So they're pushing all the chips to the table and hoping to get a chip. And this was supposed to be their year. I picked them. I thought they'd take that next step because I thought they were the best regular season team by far. There's the stat about when they're up in the fourth, they were 62, whatever they were, 61-0 or some shit when they're up in the fourth quarter, start of the fourth quarter. Like everything all the stats were pointing towards this is their chance, and they squandered it completely. And you give credit to Dallas, they stole it. So I'm interested to see what they do long term. I mean, I still think they probably need a couple more veterans around or some kind of, not veterans, but veterans in the context of they've been around the league, they'll come in and understand their role, not a veteran as far as locker room because I think they're okay there. So I think there needs, maybe the fringe third option for scoring just because I think that CP3 scoring is going to dry up for them. Yes, they've got Booker. He even struggled in that game 7, but I think they need one more piece. I'm not saying a big 3, big 4 type, but someone, someone like what Wiggins is doing for Golden State, someone like that that's just happy to play their role, be another defender, can knock down a 3, can bring different things, maybe a bit more offensively inclined than defense. I don't know, but that's what I think they're missing moving forward. But I think their core's still decent, and you gotta roll it back. I mean, they almost got there.
Yeah, and with CP's salary, look, he goes to 28.4 next year. And then he's got 2 more years at 30.8 and 30, but he's only partially guaranteed in 23-24, 15.8 out of his 30 is guaranteed, and then he's non-guaranteed in 2024-25. To be honest, I don't think they should sort of be panicking right now and just trying to dump CP or anything like that. Because look, I think, in my opinion, again, I'd like your opinion before. I know we're spending a lot of time on this series, but like, I don't think that because of one bad playoff series, and I mean one pathetically bad playoff series, he was very bad. All right, and no offense to him, but it's just his game evaluating, it was very bad. But do you say that it's over because of one series, or you're like, look, guy had a bad series? First of all, I don't believe that he was hurt, like Mark Spears and all that stuff about him being hurt. I feel as though that it just was a bad series and they want to use that as sort of an excuse. But like, I don't think I would be in panic button mode. Like their roster as it is, Bogues. I mean, you go with CP, Booker, Bridges, Crowder, Ayton, right? And then coming off the bench with Cam Johnson, with McGee, Johnson, Shamet, you got Campaign. There's really not a lot of room there, because I don't think they're going to move CP. I think they're going to stay there. Maybe guys sign up for the minimum or partially, with their salary cap situation, probably the taxpayer mid-level. I don't know the whole numbers. So maybe they're not a taxpayer, but, using some of the mid-level to sign somebody. But I think they're in good shape. I just think that Dallas came at them hard, and it was a tough series for them. I mean, the one thing, unlike Milwaukee, and we'll talk about the Bucks in a minute, like they weren't missing anybody. That was the problem for me. Like I could see why Milwaukee, fell short against Boston, because they were missing an all-star player. They weren't missing anybody, and they ran through the playoffs. Like I'll run through a sleeve of fucking Oreo cookies. They ran through the regular season, and Phoenix, and you thought that they were gonna, do better with this and make the conference final. But I'm not going to press the panic button. I'm going to re-sign Ayton. I'm going to go forward. They could draw. I think Monty Williams made a mistake if he did say that in public, that he quit on him. I don't care what situation it is. You always got to look at the optics and figure out what you're doing there. And you can't be saying things like that. Like I remember I mistakenly called the player fooling around. I called the player a bitch when I was in Dallas. And I thought that player, because I was very close to him, and I thought he was going to rip my fucking lungs out. I made a mistake. I thought we were joking around. I thought it was the wrong call, the right call, because nobody was there. It was just a couple of guys working out, shooting. We were just joking around. And you know how I go at players. Same thing. Like I made a mistake. I totally apologize for it right away. There's tomfoolery, and then there's things that you fuck up on. And I fucked up on that one. Monty Williams totally fucked up. If that was the case, he totally fucked up, because you don't tell a player that's been with you all the whole year and been with you for 2 years and been, a really good player and has been a really good guy. You don't tell him he quit on you. I mean, come on. I mean, I understand it's a big stage. You're getting embarrassed. I get it. But it's not like that guy laid down. That guy played his fucking ass off. He did anything but quit on you. And I don't think you say that in that situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like we said, it's reactionary with a bad performance. So it goes without saying. Right, Milwaukee, Boston, you had this 4-2. I had it 4-3 for Boston, and then I stupidly flipped mid-series pro with a little segment a couple of weeks ago where it was you could jump ship, and I did. And I looked like a genius because I flipped it 2-2. And then Milwaukee win game 5 on the road. And I'm like, I got this one right. And I didn't. So and then we got our little friend on social media that's a Boston crony railing me for it. But I thought Giannis was just playing out of his mind. But you give credit to Boston, man. They took that over. Grant motherfucking Williams, man. I mean, 7 for 18 from 3 to close them out. I mean, it's just, just absolutely crazy numbers. He shot 18 threes to go with 27 points, but they were well-rounded. They never really seemed in a panic. I thought at times in that series there was a bit of coasting at times, but they never were really overly panicked. I don't know if that's a testament to, how good they are, how they know we're good defensively. We've got scoring weapons. Tatum was 27.6, 6.3, and 5.3 a night, 37% from the 3 on 10 attempts, pro. That's huge. And he made some huge ones throughout that series. Whenever Milwaukee made runs, there was that one home game. I can't remember which one it was, where Milwaukee were making a run. Oh, it was game 6. Yeah, I think Milwaukee were making a run, and he hit some threes just to keep it at 10 to 15. They got down to 8, and then bang, he hits a 3. Brown was 22, 7, and 3. Smart, 14 and 5.7 assists. Horford was 13 and 10. He had a solid series and really good defensively. At the other end, Giannis, insane numbers. I mean, 34, 15 and 7 a night, but he did average 5 turnovers a game. He was winging it all over the place at times. They were. I felt like Boston did a really good job of changing up coverages with the way that sometimes they'd send a double on Giannis, sometimes they'd be at boxes and elbows, sometimes they would dig, sometimes they would half show or half blitz. So I thought they did a really good job of keeping him guessing, and that equates to 5 turnovers a night. That's a lot of turnovers. That's 10 free points for Boston. Drew Holiday turned up the aggression, but it was just not accurate. He was 22 points a night from 36%. 36% from the field, and we both spoke about it. With Middleton out, they needed someone else to step up scoring. And you look at their series stats, and they just couldn't find a bucket anywhere else. And Drew Holiday you could see he was pressing to try and be that guy, but I just don't think that's his role. Connaughton ended up being their third best scorer, funnily enough, with 10 a night. But they just couldn't find that a consistent third scoring punch, even second, I'd argue. I mean, Drew was being aggressive, but they just couldn't find it. And you give credit to Boston. They were fantastic defensively again. They were the number one team in the second half of the season for a reason. Giannis, it almost looked like, hey, you're going to get some of your numbers. Cool, no worries, but we're going to make sure that no one else beats us. And the games that Milwaukee won, it was a Bobby Portis coming in and having a night, or a Connaughton hitting some big threes. But when they didn't have contributions from other guys, that they just weren't deep enough to beat Boston, bro.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, Giannis had a great series, and he just couldn't find his shooting stroke for sure. Like, his free throws were under 70%, and, shot 25 from the three, and he was hunting that three a lot, like when things were not going his way. And look, the way he dominates games is through running in transition, his offensive rebounding, his ability to get the ball up top. We know what's going to happen. He's going to drive you, spin you, and finish, and get to the free throw line. And he was able to, for a big chunk from last year's playoffs to throughout the season, and even early in the playoffs, he was making shots and making his free throws. He wasn't doing that, and he was hunting threes. And like losing Middleton, we talked about it, such a big part of their sort of demise in this series, because they just didn't have enough people stepping up. I mean, Boston played great. Boston was unbelievable with, their attack of Tatum and Brown, and, just their role players and Smart, and, Grant Williams stepping up. Grant Williams gets a lot of flack for, once in a while. Like, I don't know if you follow Boston as much as I have. Not that I follow Boston a lot, but you get it enough because I follow a lot of people on Twitter in New England and Boston. He gets a lot of shit. He got drafted pretty high, and, he's been an okay player. He's been somebody, I thought he was going to be like a Chuck Hayes early on in his career, and he's really become a very good perimeter defender, perimeter shooter. And he's really worked his way in there and into a really good, solid, fifth option for a team on the floor, maybe even the 4.5, I guess, 5. But they played great. They played great defensively. Al Horford, Marcus Smart, guys like that. Even Derek White, sort of, who's been in a funk, he actually stepped up a couple of games. I'll tell you who stepped up in small doses is Peyton Pritchard, who kicked the shit out of Grayson Allen. Mm-hmm. Grayson Allen's had this really, productive year and really good playoffs at times. And he didn't show up. He did not show up. And like you said, without Middleton, you have to sort of bring everybody got to, come together to sort of recreate that 20 points a game that you're missing from Middleton. And he didn't do it. He didn't do it. Well, Connaughton was okay. I mean, he made shots, but he just couldn't score enough. He's just not that type of player. He's a shot maker. He plays hard. He's good in transition. He's a smart player. Bobby Portis needed to give you like 15, and Brook Lopez got to give you a little bit, but he's been hurt, and it's been tough. But, Peyton Pritchard and those guys, those young guys played well. And, on top of the all-stars, of course, of Brown, Tatum, and, Horford and those guys. But, yeah, it was a clinic, an absolute clinic that Boston put on. Maybe he thought that Milwaukee could do something at Boston, but they just couldn't do anything. It's sort of like, in ways, it was like the Phoenix and Dallas series, where like Milwaukee would punch them in the face, and maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, you would say Boston was just going to their legs will get knocked out, and they go, fuck no. And that's true growth of a team, where like at one point of their sort of build up, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, they would falter, but now they didn't. They stayed together. They absorbed the punch, and they just went right back at Milwaukee, and there was nothing they could do about it. Expected more out of Drew Holiday, especially shooting the ball. He just couldn't do it. He wasn't efficient. He wasn't his regular self. and they threw the ball away. And Giannis is a big culprit of that. But, collectively as a team, I don't know if they were too loose, or they were just too loose with the ball. And it ended up really hurting them at the end.
Yeah, it was. But it was a fun series. It's what you want. You wanted Game 7. It was just unfortunate. It was another Game 7 blowout. Both of them weren't what you wanted to watch in a Game 7. But, Grayson Allen was bad that series. I thought he was a better defender than they were putting him in. They were hunting Grayson Allen throughout that series. I thought he was a better defender than that. Well, he has that rep, right? Because he's fiery and borderline dirty.
Oh no, he's got the rep of being a cheap shot artist, not a fucking good defender. But yeah, he'll trip you with the best of them.
Yeah,
he's not much of a defender.
I never thought he was an elite defender. I didn't think he was this bad. I thought he was an average to okay, culpable defender. Like I definitely wouldn't have thought that you're like, hey, we're gonna try to find him at all costs type defender. And that was interesting. But where to for Milwaukee? I mean, for me, they had some injuries, so you got to give them some credit for that. But I don't think they changed too much. I think they're still got a good core. They'll probably go to I think they've got a mid-level available. They'll probably maybe get a veteran in there as well. I think the PJ Tucker loss was pretty big for them. I don't think he would have helped too much in this series, but I think you throw him at Tatum at times when Tatum's hot wouldn't have hurt. Something different, but. Yeah, they didn't bring him back. They changed their core a little bit. Thought he was really good for him in the finals. But, I think they keep their – I don't think there's any panic stations for Milwaukee. They got a chip only a year ago. They were kind of in the mix. They go to 7 against a team that a lot of people have picked to go to the finals. So no panic stations for me, Pro. I think they were good with where they're at, make a few small tweaks, and they'll be right back in that mix again next season.
Yeah, when you have an injury like that, and it wasn't like the team quit or, you have this inner feud. You had one of the better players in the league, top 25 player or so in Middleton, and you're losing him and you're losing 20 points a game. That's a lot of your punch right there. So it wasn't like, I could understand why Phoenix is looking around like, what the fuck? Because of the fact they weren't missing anybody. When you're missing somebody like that and you're forcing all these other role players to step up to become better than role players, it's hard. And I think you have to evaluate your team based on if you have a full roster together. And they were most of the year, and then Middleton gets out with that knee injury. I think you give them another year, figure it out, and, play around with your roster a little bit. Maybe you could bring in some guys, but I think they got a really good core. They got a good nucleus. I think those guys play hard. They play together. It's just when you're missing, a big scorer like that, it's really hard to replicate. And you need that scoring. And as much as defense is important in the playoffs, you need that scoring. You need that when they're trying to double and take the ball out of your best player's hands. You need someone else to rely on to be able to drop you 20, 25. Maybe be that one, that 30-point a game guy. One or two games in a series when they're taking the ball out of your best player's hands. So. Yeah, I think they're fine. I think they can move forward. I think Bud did a good job. I think everybody did their job. It's just they just got a little unlucky with injuries throughout the playoffs. Yeah,
no doubt. And I think they maybe look for a bench punch scorer. Would probably be what they're probably circling. If they can find a cheap version of Jordan Clarkson or Lou Williams, one of those types that can just be a microwave off the bench. But those guys are going for 15, 20 million these days. Gary Trent Jr., those kind of guys that were those 6 men now have gone into teams and got paid. So easier said than done. All right, Western Conference Finals. Warriors versus the Mavs. We have the luxury of obviously knowing that this is currently 2-0, but I picked the Golden State Warriors 4-2. You picked the Mavs 4-2. So they better get on their bike, Pro, in these next 2 home games. But I thought that Gary Payton II or Junior or whatever it is, I thought his out would have hurt Golden State a little more just with guarding Luka. But Wiggins has been good. I think Wiggins has done a hell of a job guarding Luka. You're not going to stop Luka. I think game 1, I don't take too much into. I think for both teams, Boston and Dallas, coming off those game 7s, they were just flat as a pancake in those game 1s. They just no energy, just flat. And that's that game 7 hangover, the high of that game 7. And then it's like, great guys, you got game 7 done. And then, hey, you got a game in 2 days, So I think that it's not an excuse, but it is what it is. I think we saw what Luka will bring in game 2 a little bit more. And I think Wiggins has done a great job guarding him for the most part. But Dallas, I mean, we all know they had that game. I kind of thought, look, they're not going to shoot the way they did in the first half of the whole game. And if they do, you shake their hand, you take the loss. And they not that they dried up, but they shot the ball so well in that first half. Like everything. And the Warriors had that, I mean, it was like a half little show with Steph where they didn't want Steph stuck on Luka. And they were, obviously Dallas were hunting whoever Steph was guarding to come sit the screen. And it was junky for the Golden State Warriors. Like their rotations just weren't as crisp. Sometimes Steph stayed too long. Sometimes he left early. They made an adjustment on that at halftime and it looked much better. But yeah, I think it was Dallas's game to be won. I think they'd be kicking themselves now thinking, shit, like it should be 1-1 going back to Dallas. It's 2-0. That's the difference, and I posted this on socials. That's the difference between Phoenix and Golden State, in my opinion. Golden State's been there before. They've seen everything, every man and his dog, every scheme, every whatever you want to call it. They've seen it. They've been down 20. They've been down 30. They've seen it all, right? Whereas Phoenix haven't really seen it all yet. And I think that's the difference. You've got a championship merit team that just is rarely going to quit. If you get them to, you got to have them down 50 at halftime for them to quit, right? And I think Dallas felt that they kind of didn't come out as crisp, and you could just see Golden State just kept it, at that 10-12 in that third quarter, and Dallas just couldn't really extend that lead back to what it was, and then 3-3-3, and you're down to. It's a 3-4 point game and they end up stealing it. So I think, Dallas had that opportunity, but they are going home. The old adage of, the playoffs don't start till someone loses home court, or a series doesn't start till someone loses home court. Dallas had that opportunity. I think Dallas get game 3. I think the big one is game 4. I think not that the Golden State Warriors will just coast in there. I think they'll want to, if they can get it, they'll take it. But I think, Dallas going home, did a lot of good things in game 2. They'll watch the tape and be like, let's replicate what we did a bit better in the first half to the second half. We would have won that game, and we'll go from there. And I think Golden State will come out and bring it. But at the same time, I think Dallas will get game 3. So I think it's going to come down to game 4 for the series. If Dallas can get game 4, then we've got a series, and we all know how that goes. But I just think that Golden State's going to be too much overall in this series, bro.
Yeah, I mean, with how the series has gone, obviously we know how polarizing Golden State could be, what they can do as far as their experience and their talent and their skill level. With Dallas, I felt as though they got all the shots they wanted in game 1 and they couldn't make it, and they just didn't step up and make shots, and they allowed themselves to get down pretty easily, and they never really, Golden State never looked back. Then they come in game 2, come into that 20-point lead or whatever, and then it was funny. Like they come up to this 20-point lead, I leave because we have to work out guys for the draft and stuff, and some other kids, and I go to my workouts, and then they had the game on, but they don't have the sound on, and then someone's yelling out that they cut it to 2. I was like, what the fuck? But what I'm thinking is, look, game 3 is it for Dallas. If they can win if they lose game 3, obviously it's over. If they can win game 3, I'm very confident they can win game 4. I think that the way they've been playing, they're okay, but they have to utilize the 3-point shot in a way that they can get great looks instead of just, launching shot after shot. It sort of reminds you of Houston, right? Like a couple of years ago against Golden State, where they just sort of they shot themselves out of the game. And that's what they did in the third quarter. They just got to be smarter with the 3. They got to attack the basket. They got to keep on getting good looks. Don't fall in love with the 3. I'm not a big fan of taking 55 or close to 63s a game. I'm more like a little bit lower, just get high level 3s, move the ball, get corner looks, ball movement, attack the basket. They got enough weapons, Bogues. They got enough defense. There's nothing that Golden State has that Dallas is like, well, we can't do this. Look, obviously Golden State's the more experienced team, probably the better team, obviously, being of 2-0 and all. But Dallas, it's not like they're way overmatched. They've gotten good looks in both games. They got to make shots and step up. They got to play smart. Dinwiddie's got to show up, which he hasn't really done. And they got to get some more production. But, Golden State's like their movement. It was funny, Bogues. Game 1, it seemed like they moved all over the place. Now, game 2, especially early on, it seemed like the player movement off the ball wasn't as intense and it wasn't as blur. They weren't a blur like they were in game 1. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just didn't seem like the ball movement. And I mean, not the ball movement, the player movement, constant cut, split action, just keep on moving and moving and moving. It seemed like they just sort of, they stuck around a little bit. Now, I'm sure that changed in the third and fourth quarter. I haven't watched that second half yet, but
it did a little bit.
It still is.
It did a little bit, but not. Yeah, it definitely was more ISO based. Even when because Steph got it going in that third/fourth, made some big buckets for him. Yeah, the movement. It's hard to do that all game, man.
It is.
Dallas doesn't do it as much. Dallas is much more. They move off the ball, but not into split cuts. It's more. There'll be an action to get Luka in a pick and roll, and then they'll try to just move off whatever teams do to Luka. Whereas the Warriors are notorious for just running guys off cross screens and the split actions and the handoffs. So yeah, it was a fair point. It definitely dried up, and that's a scary thing too, because they weren't moving as well as they usually do, and they still got that win pretty comfortably towards the end. They ended up winning by 9.
I'll tell you what, Looney's going to get paid. I mean, Looney set himself up to get paid pretty well. Look, as much as all the bigs take shots these days about, they're not an important part of the game, he is a very important part to what they're doing with his rebounding, with his rim protection, with running the floor, playing hard. He's really had a pretty good series. Look, he's not Wilt fucking Chamberlain by any stretch of the imagination, but he's played well, man. He's been really good. He's really matured. Yeah, he's done well. I think
he's a guy you can switch 1 through 5 if you need to in emergencies. He doesn't look like he's moving fast, but he's just one of those guys that he's always right there, right? And he's long, he's smart, he knows how to play. I mean, just his movement off the ball, dunker to dunker, is something that young kids should watch. If you're playing for a team that you're not the main guy with ball handling duties or creating for your team. Offensively, you moving off the ball. Watch Kevon Looney and watch what he does. Whenever guys are driving, he gets into those little crevices behind a defender's head. He gets under the backboard sometimes. He's always moving it, and his offensive rebounding, his work pre getting the rebound is elite. Like I said, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, and that's why it's so good to watch, because he'll start preparing for offensive rebounds, knowing guys' shooting patterns, where guys are going to shoot from, and sometimes he just luckily falls into them because he's given the effort to go to the board. He got so many big tip outs in that third quarter and got them second, third possessions, and that's demoralizing if you're Dallas, because you have a hell of a defensive possession, you just don't get the rebound, they tap it out and Steph hits a 3 and then starts doing his little dances and stuff. That's demoralizing as fuck, because you've done a good job, you just couldn't cap it off. And I agree. I think he is more suited to that system. I think if he gets paid and goes to a team that don't utilize his strengths around great star players, maybe he struggles a little bit more. But in that system, I think he's just such a perfect fit moving off the ball. And I'll be interested to see where he goes, but they got to try to keep him. They do have some cap problems coming up in the next couple of years, though. So with everything going on, it'll be interesting to see where they go. Let's move on to the Eastern Conference Finals with Boston and Miami. This is on right now. Miami's beating the shit out of them for 16-4 right now. 8 minutes left in the first quarter, so we'll touch base on that later on in the pod and see where it's at. But I did notice, just as you were talking, watching that, Miami's come out with a whole lot more energy and physicality. They got punched in game 2, and I think that's been their adjustment. But yeah, let's go to game 1. Look, game 1, like I said, I think the game 7 hangover didn't help Boston. Miami came out and just kind of cruised through that game pretty comfortably. I'd say that there wasn't a whole lot of nervous times. Game 2 was flipped. Boston came out and punched them completely. Hell of a job, like you said. There was some back and forths throughout the game, some individual matchups. I think Jimmy's been elite again, just for a guy who doesn't shoot a lot of threes and anti-analytics. He's had a great finals and playoffs to this point. He's been big in this series already. Kyle Lowry's back, so he's playing today, which is, I think they, not great offensively. They don't have a great offensive playoffs, but I think having that really bulldog, great defender to now, give Jimmy a bit of a rest off Tatum or Brown, I think is key. But it's still going to be a hard series to pick. I think think we both went Boston 4-2, but it's they're opposites. Miami's just as good. They're more slower pace, defensive grind, hold, grab. Boston are elite defensively, but I think they just have it because they have elite shot makers in a Tatum and Brown, guys that can get their own bucket even from three. I think Miami have that in Butler, Hero inconsistently. Oladipo hasn't really been that guy for a while. So, yeah, man, I mean, I think both series are going to be fantastic, but I'm still thinking Boston 4-2 in this one, even though they're down by 12 right now in the first quarter.
Yeah, I just always worry about the scoring from Miami. Look, let's be honest. They've been a finals team. They've been a very consistent winning team the last few years, and they're not going to get rattled easily. They're tough, and they get the best coach in the league, in my opinion, in Spoelstra, and they got Jimmy Butler, one of the toughest players in the league. The problem is they've got some shooting, but they don't have a lot of scoring. Tyler Hero is going to have to continue to step up and play, big time basketball for them to have a chance in the series. Boston just going to come at you. I know they had, Smart was out. Robert Williams is obviously with the knee, and Horford had the game one deal with the COVID. But I still think Boston's going to win the series. It's going to be close. I think it's going to go 7. And I think that it's just something that, like you said, like one team will get punched in the mouth. We'll see how the other team makes the adjustments for the game, for the next game, and just continue to compete. I still worry about, look, they get the best player in the series in Tatum, right? But I still do worry about the scoring when it comes down to it, for Miami. So unless they're going to make a ton of threes, and I just don't see where the extra scoring is going to come from. Kyle Lowry playing is a good, it's good for them if he could play it, close to 100%, because they need the experience, they need the talent on the floor. They need to just another player that could sort of create a little bit. It'll be interesting physically how he competes the rest of the series. I still think Boston wins. I think it'll be a great series to watch. Two really good coaches going at it, and guys going to war. But I think Boston just has a little bit too much for Miami, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got a good friend of mine who's a huge Miami Heat fan, so he's always in my ear about Jimmy buckets and all this. And I just said, I'm just not sold on Miami offensively. Hopefully I'm wrong. Yeah. Hopefully we're both wrong. Well, it doesn't matter if we're wrong, but I mean, yeah, I think when things dry out, they'll struggle to get a bucket. Especially, we saw in game 2, the whistle was much different. Jimmy relies on getting to the line a lot, to the free throw line, with just the way he plays. So he wasn't getting that whistle in game 2 when they got blown out. So I think the scoring one is a questionable one, whereas I think, that's why I'm leaning Boston. They have Jimmy's an elite shot maker at times, but mainly, he's not going to hit a big three for you really. Generally, he's just not a guy that likes to hoist up a lot of threes, whereas I think Tatum and Brown, they can hurt you many different ways, and they're elite scorers in that fact. So I think it's great though. I think both these series, from what I've heard, TV ratings have been phenomenally high compared to the last 5, 6, 7 years. Is that Kyle Lowry? I think Kyle Lowry's leaving the floor, pro. That doesn't look good, so hopefully it's not his hamstring again, but it looks like it is. But yeah, TV ratings have been good, so I think people have appreciated good battles. I think the unknown of a clear-cut champion. Notice, pro, there's no political activism this playoffs. I think that definitely plays a part, I think, for people tuning in that just want to watch basketball. So I know it definitely is a good thing for me. I just love watching the game. I don't want to hear about all the shit we hear about on a daily basis everywhere else. So just a small note for that. All right. We'll see how we go. You've been on fire with your picks, by the way, pro. You're killing me, man.
Bogues, these picks are so fucking overrated. It's not even funny. Like,
well, you're killing it now, man. You can start a new niche for yourself.
Dude, last year I was completely fucking awful. This year, look, I took 2 teams that not a lot of people had a lot of faith in because they got hot late. And I just had a good feeling about. But remember, like, I didn't like Golden State. Like, I think I had them going out in the first round.
Yeah, you had Denver.
Yeah, Denver. Yeah. So it's like, I hate fucking making picks, folks. I fucking hate it. I like busting people's balls online about my picks and stuff, but I'm not one of those guys like, I told you so, I was right.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just could care less. I just like watching the game, but it's
and that's what's interesting with people that get games right sometimes. Like, everyone's going to get a series that they call something and get right, and then you're going to get 10 you don't get. It is what it is. It's good. It's a good discussion. a good debate on things. Oh, maybe they should make this adjustment. I love that part of it. But the whole, these guys are like, oh, I'm like 90% at picking a series. No, you're fucking not.
Yeah.
No, you're not, dude.
Yeah.
Like the NBA is one of the hardest leagues to figure out and predict exactly. Like, you know, where you try sports bet it. That's your meter. Go on sports bet NBA games and then come back to me in a month's time when you've lost some money, you know, because it's so hard to just, you know, constantly figure out. You got late scratches, you got injuries, you got momentum, you got the referees. Like, there's just so much going on. It's one of the hardest things to pick. So, yeah, I like doing it more from the point of view that I like to say when we're right, but we also say when we're wrong. Hey, fuck it. But it's just the debate and the discussion is fun. All right, NBA lottery has been announced, pro. Your Orlando Magic go number one. They got the number one pick, OKC, who are ultimate tank mode. Got 2, Houston, also ultimate tank mode. 3, Sacramento, trying to win at all costs, but look like a tank mode. 4, Detroit 5, Indiana 6, Portland 7, New Orleans, which comes from the LA Lakers, is 8, San Antonio 9, and Washington 10, pro. I haven't really followed it too much. Is there a clear-cut number one pick right now to the big white kid? What's his name?
No, Chet Holmgren. Jabari Smith from the kid from Auburn. There's a big kid from Duke that's pretty good, Poncho. And
Poncho.
Yeah, he's a good player. He reminds me of like Tobias Harris a little bit. I like Jabari Smith the best. I think that I'm not a big fan of Holmgren's body. I think he's going to be a Porzingis, a Porzingis type where he's going to find a lot of injury issues, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor. Who the fuck knows? But I just don't like guys with skinny legs. I don't care about skinny tops. Skinny tops, the strength coach could fix. Skinny legs, I don't think anybody could fix. I think it's going to be an ongoing problem that he's going to have, and he's just going to be banged up. And I like Jabari Smith. He's a big guy. He's sort of like a Bam Adebayo, probably get you a little bit more offense than Bam at times. So I think that just like any year, you're going to find some sleepers in the draft, guys that really overachieve and really become really good players, and then some are going to be highly touted and ain't going to do shit. So it'll be an interesting take.
Australian brethren, Dyson Daniels. This is from Jonathan Givoni, who does NBA draft stuff online. He's given an opinion that he thinks he's the most impressive showing of any prospect on the Pro Day circuit. Now, keep in mind the Pro Day circuit is mainly 1-on-0 with trainers, that kind of stuff, but you can only judge on what you see for the most part. I think there was a little bit of live stuff, but I'm not sure there was too much of it. But shooting the lights out, looking like he has potential he's yet to tap into, and he's starting to generate some top 5 pick buzz, pro. So, and he's long, he's athletic, he's got a nice shot, he knows how to play. I watched a couple of his workouts before I jumped on the pod, and just smooth, really, really smooth player, and had a pretty good year over there with the Ignite program. So that's an Australian brethren for us to watch out for. Do you know much about him?
I have. He's doing well. He actually works out in the gym that I work guys out of, but I think he's an Octagon guy, so I don't see his workouts. We don't go to their workouts. They don't come to ours, but I've heard that he's done well, and that he's done well for himself in workouts and things. So I think he's going to be good. I think he plays hard. I think he's a good player. People who've been around him and seen him play that I know in the league and trust have really thought that he could be a really good player. I don't get caught up in like where you're going to go. I get caught up in like what you do when you get there and how do you produce. So I think he can do that. I think he's got an NBA skill. I think he compete. He's a good player. Depending on the team he goes to, I think he's got a future.
Yeah, I think he does. And it's always good to see guys kind of rise up because, he was a mid to late first rounder, and now he's creating some attention just based on his workouts, which you can't, like you said, you can't judge everything on that, but he can only do what he's got in front of him, and he's doing a good job with that. So hopefully we get another Australian in the top 5, and we can celebrate another Australian playing well in the NBA. All defensive first teams were announced. No surprises really in the first team. Giannis, Bridges, Gobert, Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart. I don't think you can really argue with that too much, bro.
No arguments from me. No, anything from you?
Nah, not really. Second team was Bam, Draymond, Drew, Matisse, and Robert Williams III. I mean, one guy that might be pissed is Patrick Beverley. We need to talk about his past week too. Geez, but yeah, he's one guy that wasn't on there that you could probably put on the second team. But for the most part, I think they're pretty analytically based now, so they're very hard to screw up. But I think those teams have it right. Speaking of Patrick Beverley, bro, he's been on the talk show circuit. I think he's first of all, he called the CP3 injury. So
yeah,
that was, for those of you who haven't seen that, he said at about first quarter / second quarter of Game 7, Phoenix Dallas, he basically tweeted something like, "Watch out for the there's going to be an injury out for one of our guys in Phoenix. Watch." And by the end of the game, Mark Spears said that Chris Paul was playing with something tweaked, torn, whatever, strained quad. So Patrick Beverley got that one right. He read the room on that one pretty perfectly, which was kind of hilarious, just the way he went about it. But he's been on talk shows and going at Stephen A. Smith, going at JJ Redick. It's been kind of fun to watch. People are giving him a bit of flack because he's asking for more hate on why doesn't CP3 get the same hate Ben Simmons does, all that kind of stuff. So there's been some good back and forth there. I think he's niching out a little career in the media when he's done, just because his personality and how he talks and how he discusses things is how he plays, right? He's all in. Like he's not going to sit on a fence. He's going to give you his opinion. You know where he stands. He's fiery. He's going to go back at you. And that's what sells on TV and radio these days, bro. But it's been fun to watch just him basically just going on a national shitting on everyone tour.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Patrick since he's been in high school. He used to work out at the gym in Chicago with Grover and those guys. And, he's always been like that. He's always been somebody who doesn't care about what you think of him. He's going to say what he's going to say, and that's it. Look, he's got a history of Paul for sure, and that's evident. And sometimes it spills over into his evaluation. Some things that like the injury things and being political and all that, I get all that. I totally get it, because everybody knows that. But then some of the things that he says that you could tell there's a little bit of bias there just because of his relationship with, CP and not liking the guy. He fucking hates him. I get it. It's like me talking about Carlisle on the show. I try to keep it as unbiased as possible. But if you hate a fucking person, I get it. You want to, especially when you're in you got millions of people watching, you want to stick that dagger in them a little bit more. He lost a little credibility to me saying that he would give James Harden the max, without question. Obviously that's his boy from Houston. And, now you're like, all right, come on, man. Like you go into CP, we get that, but now you're going to, everybody and their mother knows that you're not going to no one would give James Harden the max. You're going to say that. But of course, everybody has their opinion and he's entitled to it.
Yeah, and I think he's hit the spot on though. I think that's where he loses some people, and Draymond Green made that point. As soon as I try to do the same thing. Like there's guys I don't have great relationships with in the NBA, coaches, whatever, right? But when I'm trying to, be analytical or give an honest opinion about it, I try to separate that just because it muddies the waters, and then you just end up looking like a crying baby, right? So, and I think that's where he had some really good takes on certain things. And then you go out and it's obviously personal, and he's admitted it's personal. That's when you lose people, because you're not really giving me an analysis or giving me something that's, basketball or whatever, right? You this is from your personal hurt feelings or heart or whatever, and that, I totally agree with that. That's where you lose people. But I will say it has been fun to watch. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but I don't agree with everything he says, and I think he has lost.
I take him over Perkins any day of the week. Oh. I would take him over. Perkins is and not very good, and at least he gives you like presence. He's not going to fly off the handle. Yes, he's biased towards CP. I get that, but but he gives you some legible stuff that actually makes a little sense. Even look, everybody, your take, my take, everybody has takes that people are like, coming out of left field a little bit. And I don't agree. That's okay. That's normal. But I like him. Don't get me wrong. And look, he'll refine himself. He'll retune himself, where if he does this again in long term, he'll get better at this. And like everybody, I think at the start sort of needs a little bit refining. But it was something that was cool to watch. You get bored with the same people's takes all the time, and it's good to see a little bit of variety.
Especially current players. At least they have the balls to say it. But I think Perks, His clock's ticking. I think he has the same run of cliches that he uses on a, you know.
And he's hypocritical. He'll go both sides of things. He's not going to stick to one thing. He'll be like, this guy sucks. And then like that guy will go back at him and then he'll be like, oh yeah, like typical player stuff. Like when somebody comes at him about something, especially another player, and they want to stay in the old boys network, in the old player network. And they'll be like, oh, fuck. All right. Yeah, I got to, and they retune his stance on it. That's where he's got to stay more consistent with his takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially after Draymond Green called him a big ogre, which was funny. The NBA is discussing stopping intentional fouls to stop fast breaks by giving the other team a free throw and they retain possession. Do you like it, bro?
Yeah, I don't like to take foul. I like it was refreshing to watch the Olympics and you watch the EuroLeague. They don't allow it. I'm all for that. I don't like take fouls. To be honest, I don't like take fouls for my clients too, where they waste a foul. I'd rather give up to be honest, I'd rather give up the 2 points because Stan Van Gundy actually made a good point the other night and I'll give him props on that. He said the same thing. And he goes, you don't know when you're going to need that foul in the fourth quarter individually. Now you're wasting the foul to take. Yeah, I'd rather get rid of it.
Only thing I'll say is it then puts a lot of pressure on the official to determine a player's intent. The obvious ones are the obvious ones. You grab and hold, but there's strategic ways then to do that, right? So if we're running side by side and I lunge at the ball and then take you out with my shoulder, is that deemed intentional? What they do in the NBL is they're like, well, yes, you almost hit the ball, but we still think you were trying to slow the break down. So now all of a sudden you're in my brain, right? Like you have to completely, judge things based on that, and that's when it gets murky because now you got an official. Basically the rule book in the NBL or FIBA says that if you're not in a guarding position what's the wording? There's something like a legal guarding position where you can make a play on the ball, but you can steal the ball from a non-legal position if you hit the ball, right? So if I'm on the side of a guy and I tap it from behind, right, on a fast break and I hit the ball and it's not a foul, that's a steal. But if all of a sudden it's a fast break opportunity, clear path, and I tap it, then it's, so that's where I just hope it doesn't get too integral. I think we've got enough, we've spoke about it last week, there's enough replay center shit already where the game just dies a slow death for 4 minutes of a quarter because there's so many reviews. That's all I hope this rule doesn't do. I think if they make it clear cut and they allow the referee to make the decision for the most part and get on with it, no problem. But if every second one goes to a review, you're slowing the game down again, which I hope they don't do. But I like the rule. I think you they talk about wanting flashy plays and all that. That happens on a fast break. Guys get out and do windmill dunks and reverse dunks and all that kind of stuff. You want to see that? This is a good way to stop it rather than just having referees put guys to the free throw line. So like it. All right, JJ Redick and Bob Cousy, a bit of back and forth. JJ Redick made some comments, this was weeks ago actually, about, your friend Mad Dog, whatever his name is. Yeah, he brought up some Bob Cousy in a conversation, and JJ Redick just basically said, look, man, he was guarded by firemen and plumbers. So Cousy a couple of weeks later, obviously probably not on social media, he's in his 80s, 90s, but just basically said, Russell and Wilt, we must have had the best firemen and plumbers on the planet. This is why I hate comparing eras, because you're never going to get it right. There's always going to be backlash, and I think that there is it's disrespectful for JJ to say to an extent, but it's NBA players were part-time back then, so I think his point, we probably made it more politically correct, would be, look, athletes are full-time now. Like, it's a full-time job, and by full-time, it's not just the 2 hours on the court. It's recovery, it's weight room, it's physiotherapy, it's eating right, it's getting sleep. Whereas back in the day, there wasn't even the science behind it. There wasn't the emphasis on it. There wasn't the money for it. So that I agree with. I think the game, you compare eras, I think this era creams the older era, in my opinion. And like I've always said, I think the next era is going to absolutely destroy the era I played in. And so, like, the world's progressive. It progresses and gets better. And with all the technology and stuff that we have today, I think, can people argue, the skill's not as great? Yeah, maybe, but shit, did you have a LeBron James type athlete back then? No. And then flipping that, would Wilt score 100 in today's game pro? I don't think so, right? So that's why I hate comparing eras. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think maybe disrespectful a little bit to Bob Cousy just based on him being an NBA legend, but I can see JJ Redick's point. I've said that to Andrew Gaze before and Leonard Copeland, like when we were bantering, because Leonard Copeland, who's awesome by the way, he'd be like, yeah man, I've got banners up in that arena, so I'll just be like, okay, yeah, cool. But you were playing against like people that had to go and like fix someone's car between training sessions. She's like, fuck off, man. So I've said it more from a banner point of view, just giving them shit. Like, yeah, you guys were playing against like people that had full-time jobs and shit. And some of them were actually back in the day, right? Like your fringe bench guys, your 9, 10, 11, 12 guys had full-time jobs outside of basketball. But the game has changed. And I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Pro, whether you think it was disrespectful or whether you think he kind of had a point, just made it the wrong way.
No, again, everybody sees this whole era versus era thing differently and how they evaluate it, and they put it in a vacuum. I remember, Dallas guys, coaches and players talking about how bad Bob Cousy would have been in today's game. And one thing that you have to understand is two things. When they talk, let's take Cousy out of it for a second. When they say, well, like the Bulls versus Golden State, well, who would guard who? First of all, wait a minute now. Because what was important in today's game wasn't important in the game that the Bulls played in. If any type of competitor, you got Michael Jordan, you got Kobe Bryant, you've got Allen Iverson, anybody who's a competitor, that if they said, look, 3-point shooting is so important to be a champion and to be an elite player, an elite team, and mid-range shots probably weren't as important, then you don't think Michael Jordan and those guys would sort of change their game? If Larry Bird thought that the game had to be played in another way, that, more threes and things like that he wouldn't adjust his game. So when you're trying to get to like Cousy and those guys, yeah, it looks weird. It's a weird type of game. It looks like, Cousy looked like he was in the Globetrotters, how he dribbled around the court and stuff. But again, you put him in today's game, in today's sports science, today's nutrition, today's training, today's travel, today's the money that's into the sport, then he'd be a completely different player. He was still an elite competitor. Shooting wasn't as important as it is today. He was a penetrator, he was a passer, he was a competitor. All those things would get better based on the training and the coaching and what we know about the game today versus what we know about the game tomorrow. It's not like you're going to be you're going to get 1.21 gigawatts and go in a fucking DeLorean and go back in time and take those guys and bring them here and just play them in a game. You have to understand that those guys have to play by the same rules, have the same training, have the same diet, have the same coaching, and then go against each other. Will Chamberlain would dominate in today's game. Dominate. It wouldn't be, would he score 100? Who gives a fuck? I don't give a fuck. Although I do like Hershey's chocolate and Hershey, Pennsylvania. I would have loved to see the game just to go to Hershey World. But like, yeah, he maybe he didn't score 100, but would he get the rebounding that he did today? Probably. Would he score and be dominating? That guy was a big time fucking athlete. Try to watch film on that guy, not just highlights and just actual games and how he was as an athlete. He's ridiculous. So, but like, I think you have to put those guys in today's game. Cousy's 6'1", and like he would play differently a little bit. He'd be competitive. He'd still have the basketball IQ, but the shooting would be better. All that stuff would be better. Yeah, he played against plumbers and stuff. I get it. And you want to kill. It's easy to kill the game back then because it was just different. So when I think, at least the way I like to compare it, if you're going to compare eras, you have to give them the same tools that today's player and education about the game that today's players have. So yeah, it was disrespectful. Of course, I only got half the argument because I'm blocked off of, I got the guy blocked, so I don't really see what JJ says these days. But I will tell you this. When you're saying that stuff, it's a little disrespectful. I see where he's going with it. He's like, look, he never shot 40% one time. Magdog's stuck in the past a little bit. It's normal when you get older. Look, I'm 46. I'm older than you. I'm stuck in the past a little bit too. I like the game. I like the way the game was played a little bit in the past versus the way it's played today. So I get sort of the biases. But when you totally disrespect an era ago, 2 eras ago, 3 eras ago, and say, well, just like end the argument, like, oh, this generation is way better. Like they have no chance. Well, yeah, the way they played versus the way we played. But again, I think you have to put everything on an equal playing field playing court as far as like how to approach the game and what's important in the game. So it's impossible. That's why I fucking hate it. I hate these lists. I hate comparing and all that bullshit. But I do think that these guys will be completely different. And the elite players will always be an elite. Most of the elite players in any era will be an elite in any era. The role players and below, that's when it will probably be a lot different. And a lot of those guys probably couldn't play in today's game because of their size and athleticism or lack thereof. I don't give a fuck if the guy was an insurance salesman or a plumber or a fucking electrician that played. That's what they had to do back then. They weren't making fucking $9 million every 2 weeks. They were fucking, they were making bullshit money. They were making basically minimum wage just to play basketball. And, they didn't have what they had today. So, and I don't know. It is what it is. So
yeah,
I don't.
I mean, one thing, I don't know if Wilt dominates today though, Pro. I think he's, in my opinion, I just think that he was more athletically based back then and big and strong. I think he's still an NBA player. I don't think he dominates like he did back then though, because I think today there's a lot of guys that are, you'd argue, are more athletic than him and can do a whole lot more at the 5 spot, right? So
now, he was like an Olympic athlete in like multiple sports. He's a big time athlete.
Back then,
he was. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. You look at. That's what I'm saying with the eras. Like it's common sense that each decade guys are getting bigger, stronger, faster. Like to see a guy like LeBron James at 6'8" do what he's doing back then. I mean, if you flip the script and say, okay, take LeBron from today back then, and I get what you're saying. Well, back then they didn't have the same training regimens, the same programs. I totally get that, but I'm just saying I think there isn't my argument on this whole thing is every decade somewhat gets better in one way or another. Now, the skills accelerate as much? Probably not. Like I think, there's some shooters back in the 80s and 90s that are arguably just as good as any shooters today, right? But then you can argue that with Steph, were there guys back then that could make the degree of difficulty? No, of course not. Not the degree of difficulty shot Steph made. So I agree with you. I think comparing eras is just disrespectful because, for fuck's sake, they played in, what are they playing, Dunlop volleys or the equivalent of those Converse All-Star shoes back in the 60s, no ankle tape, you know what I'm saying? They were traveling on trains and buses and shit. So you have to factor in everything completely, whereas you're never going to get the right result out of an argument. I think it's really, like you said, a guy like Mad Dog, the commentator, his era was, 70s, 80s, 90s Boston Celtics, so it's probably special in his heart. It's like my era, when people want to debate the GOAT, it's like I'm more aligned to Michael Jordan because I was a young child and a teenager going through adolescence when Jordan was big. So it just appealed to me. He brought me to the game. Michael Jordan was everything back then. So I'd always probably put MJ over Kobe and LeBron just based on that, right? So I think, we are biased to our own kind of perils as we grow up. And that's why I just think, discussing these eras versus eras, I think it's a good talking point and good for clickbait on TV, but I think it can become disrespectful. And you can only play what's in front of you. Bob Cousy played what's in front of him. LeBron's playing what's in front of him. Wilt play what's in front of him. We'll never know. Great talking point, but I think, let's get on with it. Lakers finalists for NBA head coaching job, Pro. Our guy Mark Jackson got knocked out, unfortunately, so less content for the pod next season, but there's still a chance in Sacramento. The final 3, Darvin Ham, Kenny Atkinson, or Terry Stotts. Call it right now. Put your balls on the line. Who's getting it?
Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers is on the list, Pro. So you're saying the Lakers are lying?
I think this is what I think. I think that they, in a gun to their head, they don't want any of those 3. Gun to my head, gun to their head, they don't. They're waiting out the Doc Rivers thing. I think that they're trying to, under the table, try to get to Daryl Morey or get to Philly and say, okay, what is it going to take to get Doc? And, what kind of compensation package you want, multiple picks, a pick, try to get this thing done, cash, whatever, however that works.
Wasn't Doc already involved was he already involved in like a?
Yeah, Boston traded the Clippers. I think they got like a second round pick.
Wasn't that the first time a coach was in an actual deal, right?
Yeah. So how about this? Yeah. Pat, Pat Riley in 1997 traded the Boston Celtics to get Chris Wallace, that was the GM of the Celtics. He was like an assistant. He was like a player personnel in Miami, and the Celtics had a trade or swap picks. They had to like swap second round picks for Boston to get the rights to sign Chris Wallace as their GM. So, but Doc Rivers. This is the first time I think that was the first time a coach was traded for him. Yeah.
So it'll be the second if it happens. Oh, Doc Rivers. Second. Okay. So it's a bit of a smoky.
It's a small. I think that they have to go through it because just in case they can't get anything done, they need to pick one of these guys. I think Darvin Ham because I don't think LeBron James wants a guy who's going to really coach him. Kenny Atkinson's a very
hell no. Kenny Atkinson, you can put a line through.
In your face type of coach. That he's like, if you think Mike Malone is tough, then, this guy makes Mike Malone look like a Hallmark card, as far as how tough he is on players. I don't see that ever happening there. Maybe Charlotte, possibly, but I don't think so. I think that, that's what I don't think. And I think that I love Terry Stotts. I think Terry Stotts is easily the best coach on that list without question. I think Terry Stotts is the best coach on that list. And he's a good offensive coach. So I think that that would make more sense because he won't stay out of the way and lay down and let like those guys do whatever they want. But he's going to be a little bit like D'Antoni in the sense that like he knows that look, you can't fight guys every day and all that stuff. He knows that the players run the show a little bit and he's going to know when to turn it on, when not to. I think Darvin Ham. Because of he was an ex-player, he played in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think LeBron would probably rather a guy like that he's not going to that Darvin first job he's going to know that he's going to need those guys. He's going to need his horses to sort of behind him and try to make LeBron happy, make Davis happy, and get those guys to compete. I like Darvin Ham a lot. I think I work with him and. Tim Gergerich just camps in the summertime in Vegas. I think he's very good. I think he's great with players. I don't like, I like new coaches that sort of filtered in and sort of give new blood some chances as far as guys that, have been assistants for a long time. I think that if I had to call it, it's Darvin Ham. If I had to get those three, if I'm going to make a call on who I think will coach the Lakers next year, that may be excluded from that list, Elvis Presley included, I would probably say that Doc Rivers will be the coach of the Lakers next year. Okay,
we'll watch that space. But yeah, it's I've played for Terry. I think I agree with you with Terry. I think Terry's got a good. He'll have a fine line of letting LeBron kind of do his thing, but also putting the foot down when he needs to be. I don't think Kenny Atkinson will get this job. I think Darvin Ham's a dark horse that could pop up because he's been pretty highly touted as a head assistant, and it all comes down to how he goes with LeBron and managing all that. Is he a guy that would come in and lay down in his first job? That's the question. I've heard he's a pretty disciplined guy that likes to.
He's a tough dude, man.
Exactly.
He's a tough fucking dude. Yeah.
I think Darvin Ham would be more suited to a Charlotte type team or someone like that, too. A young team that he can get something out of. I think. And the Lakers' job for a guy like that that's highly touted could be the kiss of death. It could be the one and done. And then he gets that job and it goes sour with Westbrook and LeBron and all that bullshit. And then he's not a head coach again for 10 years after he gets fired after 2 years, So you have to be careful with that. So he might have that in his mind about taking it, but we'll see. Tim Connolly with Denver Nuggets front office obviously wants to stay in Denver, but apparently they won't up his deal and he's flying to Minnesota for an interview and potentially Minnesota will offer him what he wants. There's a lot of backlash with this pro. There's a lot of people saying that the Nuggets, what the fuck are they doing? Why are they nickel and diming a guy? He's put together a good roster. Why wouldn't you just give him what he wants? He wants to stay in Denver. So he's obviously got some good friends in the media because there's been a lot of people talking about this. But have you heard anything about this, what the deal is?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard rumblings for years that they don't pay their staff. Mike Malone might get paid pretty well, but I've known this for years that assistant coaches, scouts, management, those guys don't get paid a lot of money. It's sort of like if you watch Moneyball with the Oakland A's, like the guy, the owner just didn't want to spend. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, though. The owner owns, first of all, I think he's in on the Walmart fortune. That's one. Two, he owns the new LA team, like the Rams, I believe. He owns the Rams. So like just built that stadium, put a shitload of money into that, and most importantly, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but he's got a penthouse on top of the arena in Denver. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, with the curtains. Yeah.
That's pretty fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Now think about this. When you go to the arena, watch it on Google Earth or whatever you want to do. On top of the arena, there's a fucking like house or a penthouse. And like he's got a place on top of an arena. That's some James Bond shit. And that's pretty sweet. But anyways.
Have his game day nap. Yeah. And then just go straight down to the game. Yeah.
Notorious for being frugal with his money, with his team, and not players necessarily. He does okay there, but as far as staff and things, look, Tim Connelly has done a great job in Denver. Great job, identifying Jokic as a great player. Got him, I believe, in the second round. Made some great decisions with his team, with his coach, with building his team, making trades, acquiring players. He's built up. Look, he wasn't a basketball guy originally, Bogues, I believe. He was in Washington when I met him. I believe he was like a PR guy at first. Like he wasn't even in basketball. And then he got into basketball. He worked up his way through the front office. And then he got this Denver job and has done an outstanding job. Now, the only thing, Bogues, about this is like you do have a young star in Edwards and those guys in Minnesota. But look, they're capped. They've spent a bunch of money on players, even though they're probably going to get rid of Towns and get rid of Russell. And they've got these young players and good role players around. But like Denver is this team that's sort of like, look, they're a good team and they got a hard enough time trying to get to a conference final. Like, and you're in Denver, Colorado. I'd much rather live in Denver, Colorado than Minneapolis, Minnesota, to be honest. And now, like, they're sort of like, they're not drafted in the lottery anymore. They're drafted like in the mid first, mid to later first. So it's not like you're going to get these great players in the draft unless you're going to get these like diamonds in the rough. You don't have a lot of cap room to get these great players to sort of make your roster that much better. You get all these really good teams in the West. It's interesting what he's going to do, but I understand. Look, you want market value. Like I've had experience with having a job where you were like the 28th highest paid person in your position, in the league. It's not very flattering. I don't know what he is as far as his ranking, but if you say you're getting $2 million and the average is like 3 million, and then Minnesota's like, fuck, we'll give you $4.5 million and run our team. We love what you did. Like, I don't blame him for wanting to jump ship. Like I do the same thing. So, yeah, so I think he's going to go unless he's going to force Denver to probably have to make a decision. They really like Calvin Booth there. He's his assistant. I heard he's been taking a lot of the media interviews the last couple of weeks with the team, and maybe they're saying, you know what, fuck it. Why pay this guy? I could pay Booth less than I'd pay anybody else or anyone else getting into the position. He's going to want his first job. Fuck it. I'll just go forward. Our team's already built. I don't have to I just got to tweak the roster. This guy's worked in the league a bunch of years. He worked under Tim. He knows what he's doing. So let's just go forward with him. It'll be interesting. I think Tim's going to go unless I say it's a 30% chance that ownership gives him the money. I would say that if they wanted him in Minnesota, they're going to get him. But to be honest, I would go to Denver before I go. Jokic is one of the best players. He's the best player in the league right now. He's MVP, 2-time MVP. Why would you leave that? You've got a good team. You've got those injuries that happen, but maybe you feel disrespected with the money. I mean, like I said, I understand what he's feeling like. So, yeah, I see him going unless they're going to up the money.
Yeah. Come on, Denver. I think he's done a pretty good job putting that roster together and obviously drafted well with Jokic and whatnot as well. So, yeah, get it done. Anyway, sad day for you, Pro. Apparently Mo Bamba wants to leave Orlando in free agency.
Shocker.
Just thought I'd put it out there because you're a big Mo Bamba fan, but apparently he's going to look elsewhere. I
mean,
nothing in that really to discuss, just that other than you're a super fan of Mo Bamba.
No Bamba, yes. No Bamba. But yeah, look, I mean, I'll give it to him. He's done a lot better than I thought he was going to do. He got a little bit better, especially under Jamal Mosley. He did a good job. But look, writing on the wall, like They got the number one pick. They're going to probably go with either Jabari Smith or someone at his position. He wants to be a starter. He probably thinks he's he probably thinks he's an elite NBA player, an all-star, and he's probably going to say that they're going to draft someone at his position. Why do it? I mean, good luck to you, bud. But sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side. You got this young coach that might believe in you. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? I'm not there, so who knows? And go fucking Mo Bamba. Go Mo.
Go Mo. All right. NBL free agency has opened already, Pro. And we've already got teams poaching our players. So
shocker.
Yeah, we win a championship, and that's what happens. But we've lost Wani Swakaloba has gone to Illawarra after locking down Tyler Harvey in the semi-finals. They've decided to bring him in. So maybe it's the old adage of we'll bring in the guy that locks up our best player and not even play him and just get him away from Sydney. But no, good luck to him. He was fantastic for us, and a young kid that hadn't really been given a good opportunity in the league. We gave him that opportunity, and we're happy to see him go and earn some money that we obviously just couldn't afford to pay. So he's done a fantastic job picking up that contract, and I think there's a few other guys in the coming days that are negotiating some pretty big deals elsewhere. So hopefully we can keep most of our team together, Pro. But that's the perils of winning a championship, right? You win a championship, you're going to have people know, kind of where our cap is roughly, and they're going to put offers out there knowing that it's going to be hard for us to go that much higher unless we want to go severely over the cap, and that's just something you have to deal with. So you can't hate on that. That's part of the business. It's a sad part of the business for both sides, but you obviously want players to be able to make more money than they can in their current situation, just like we spoke about with Connolly, with coaches and staff members. But at the same time, you want to try and bring players back. So it's going to be an interesting few, at least month in free agency. There's a lot going on. So that's how that goes. But your guy, Scott Roth, has re-signed for 3 years, Pro. There were some...
Break the hammer Valentine.
Yeah, there were. And that's a very good picture too. So if you haven't seen that, we both reposted it. A look-alike, a doppelganger for Scott Roth. But there were some rumours that he might be on the way out. He's had a rough couple of years with COVID, being stuck here, hasn't had his family in. So I heard those rumours a little while ago and spoke about it on the pod. But I was wrong. The rumour is wrong. So he's re-upped for 3 years. The Jack Jumpers, which I think is still Larry Kesselman as the owner, has got the wallet out and made sure that was a no-brainer. If he wanted to stay, you had to lock him in long term. So that's a great move for the Jack Jumpers, Pro. We get to have more of those great wild celebrations in Tassie.
I fucking love it. But look, going back to your point about your players getting poached a little bit, and look, everybody wants winners, right? And you're not going to get the best player. You're not going to get the second best player. You're going to keep on getting down, going down the list until you can get winning players. All teams want, players from winning teams. They can't get the head coach usually, so they get the head assistant or the second assistant. They try to poach. Everybody thinks there's a special formula and a secret sauce on winning teams. Now, with Scott Roth's situation, look, with those rumors, I'm sure those rumors are a little bit true. But if you're an owner and being like, look, sit down with Scott because, look, he took you there. Yes, your players did, but he did a great job for you. You sit down and say, Scott, look, I know the family thing's hard. What can we do? Instead of just sort of flying at 30,000 feet and looking at the situation, you go to him directly and you go, Scott, what can we do to keep you here? What is it going to take? Yes, financially, but what are the other things that we can do to make your job easy? That's how you keep your talent. Unless it's going to be like Tim Conway that takes a lot more money. But if it's close and you don't want to lose somebody as a staff or a player, what can we do to make you want to stay? And then you follow through with those promises. I'm glad he's staying. He's a hell of a fucking coach. He's a madman for sure, but he's a hell of a fucking coach. And I'm a huge fan of Greg the Hammer Valentine, intercontinental champion of WWF for the 80s. And he's got a fucking great scowl. So I'm a big Jack Jumper fan. I'm 50.1% Sydney, 49.9 Jack Jumper. So that's
shit. I've said if I wasn't owner of the Sydney Kings and the Sydney Kings weren't in the finals, I would have been going for the Jack Jumpers. I get it. I totally get it. It was a great story and great. It's just great to have him back and continue to build that club into. I think the fans love him there. The people love him there. The first year was out of this world, but Problem is now they've set a high bar, pro. So
yeah, they do.
when you start off that well, sometimes you're like, let's get top 5 and then work out. They went to the grand final, the big dance in their first year, so they'd want to win it next year or there'd be some disappointed fans. All right, moving on. Stats, useful or useless. Luka Doncic in elimination games, win or lose, 39-9-9, 46-7-14, 33-11-8, 35-10-4. His 38.3 PPG is the highest in NBA history. Useful or useless, bro?
Useful. The guy's a fucking juggernaut, and he's probably going to end up being one of the top 5 players of the history of our game.
Ooh, history.
Yeah.
What about Bob Cousy, though?
Look, he'll move a little bit down the list. He'll move. Instead of playing against plumbers in 40 years, he'll play against internet tycoons. But I think, look, if he's got longevity in the game, God forbid with injury and things like that, but like if he keeps on this pace and he could keep this thing up for another 10, 12, 13 years, that like why wouldn't he become one of the best players of all time? And the guy's a juggernaut. He's coming right at you. He can beat you in a million different ways. Great fucking kid. He's a smart player. He's a fucking genius when it comes to the game. I mean, he's really good. He's got his weaknesses with defense, and hopefully he can keep his weight down throughout his career. But the fucking guy is a monster nobody really seen coming besides him, his family, and maybe his agent.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. They're insane numbers, especially in closeout games, win or lose, to show up in those big moments. Huge. All right. So Jerry West remains the only player in NBA history to have what, pro?
The logo, of course.
Yes, that's one thing actually, but no, he's the only player to ever have his name on the front and back of his jersey. Do you know that, pro?
I did not know that.
Yeah, in the West All-Star game.
Oh, fuck. Who the fuck gave you that one?
It's a good one, right?
I apologize if it's a close friend or family member, but anybody else who gave you that, I'm going to go fucking ballistic on that.
We got to have a useless one. We have too many usefuls. We got to chuck a useless one in there. But yeah, he's the only guy, pro, NBA history, to have West on the front and back of his jersey. It's just an amazing time, pro. All right. I know where that one sits with you. I don't need it. All right. Davis Bertans took 42 3-pointers before attempting his first 2-pointer this playoffs. Not making, attempting. Useful or useless?
Right. Useful. Fucking Jay Kidd's got to drop some post-up plays for that mother.
42 threes before he took even one shot inside the three. He knows his fucking role, though. I tell you that much.
Hey, Bogues, you gotta go look up the movie. It's in the 80s with Tom Hanks, The Burbs. You got to look it up. He looks just like that. He looks like his face, that face with that beard. It's like this. Oh, no offense to him, but just the movie. It's like this white trash fucking weirdo family that lives next to the fucking Tom Hanks. This guy looks just like fucking Bertans. He's got the beard, the fucking weird face, the little bean head. Yeah, for sure. You got to look at that guy up. Jay Kidd needs to drop some more post-up plays for Bertans if he's only going to get 1 2-point attempt.
It's Porzingis 2.0. What you got, fact or fake news?
All right, let's go, Bogues. Bob Cousy would be a top 50 player in today's game. Now let me set the rules. He grew up in the high school, college system. He didn't go to Holy Cross. Say he went to North Carolina. He had all the coaching, all the trainers, all the IG guys with the tennis balls and the cones. He had all this shit. All this stuff. He wore skinny jeans instead of real clothes. All that stuff growing up in this era and not the one that he grew up in. Is he a top 50 player in today's game?
With all the rules said, I mean, most likely, but who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah.
How long is a piece of string? Like it's, if you were saying bring him from his era to today, no, he wouldn't be. But with all those prerequisites, he'd have a chance to. But I can't even answer that one. I don't even know how to answer that one. I can't answer it. I can't because it's just. It's
okay. Now
I'm not sitting on the fence. It's like saying the same thing about a young kid who's from a talented family of athletes that weren't professionals. You give him all that training, will he make it? He's got a higher chance of making it than a kid that doesn't have that. But then explain the the outliers of kids that grew up in rough areas that don't have any of that shit still make it, you know? So, I mean, it's a hard one to answer, but I think if you wouldn't have set the long list of prerequisites, I would say fake news, he wouldn't be top 50 in today's game of all the players today. Okay. But with all those prerequisites, it's like, who knows?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to say, I'm going to say yes, but that's just me. I'm going to say that he would. Again, because I just got to assume that, I mean, every player, don't care how rich or poor or where you come from, where you play from in today's society, that like if you're really good, if Bob Cousy grew up being not like the best player in the country, but like if he grew up like an elite top 10 player at his position in the country, that an AU team would find him, a shoe company would find him, an agent would find him, and he would get, higher level coaching and training. But like that's the thing though, Bogues, in my opinion, and I'll drop it after one sentence, that like if you're gonna say you got to drop the player. You can't just drop him from yesteryear and say, all right, you can't just drop and say, okay, how he played in those highlight films, he's going to play today. He won't play like that. He's going to play in today's.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would have him in the top 50 based on his competitiveness, his IQ for the game, and his ability to pass the ball and get in the paint. And he's just a fucking ruthless.
I think adapting is correct. Like I think your point around if he's with that elite mindset and mentality of being a pro athlete even back then, in today's, era, he would emphasize more, hey, I need to have the three ball. I totally agree with that. Like it's like when we talk about, could KG play in this era because he didn't have a three ball? Well, yeah, because he would have emphasized it more in his off-season workouts.
Right.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. But yeah, it's a hard one. I hate the era shit. So don't ever put these era questions in there again. Next one.
Well, don't put it in the notes on the other thing with the fucking JJ versus Cousy Plumber question, asshole. All right. Second. Nah, I'm just joking. You know that. All right. After watching the playoffs, you would take Luka over Giannis? Watching now, what you know about both players, you've seen them both for years now, and then you throw in what they've done in the playoffs. I know Giannis lost. Doesn't matter. It's not a big deal with that. But like,
I think
just
today,
performance-wise.
I think performance-wise and numbers-wise, I think it's closer than what you think. I think it's still very, very close. I don't think you go wrong either way. Based on today and the way Luka's playing, I'd take Luka, and I think it's probably out of sight, out of mind. He's still playing. He's still playing very well. But, Giannis's numbers are also insane. But I think
no doubt.
I think Luka's probably more of a pretty style of game as well. Like, just the way he scores, he's got so much in his bag. He can, step back threes, he can cross you over. They posted him up last game. They were posting up. And he's posted up big three men and putting him in the paint.
That's the thing.
Like
when we had him as a rookie, that was the thing. Look, he was always one of the better floater guys in the world as it is. But like I thought the one thing that he could do that I thought we should do more of is get him in the post. Because, same thing with LeBron posting up early in his career. When you have the vision that those guys have, like the vision, the size, the ability to score, like Luka, he's way better than, in my opinion. I don't care what stage of LeBron's career versus Luka's career. Last second, need a shot. I'm going with Luka over LeBron, in my opinion. Luka just has I'm not saying talent and all that stuff. I'm saying the ability to make a tough shot. Like that guy can make any type of shot over any type of defender on any given possession. Not every time, but I trust that guy to just get a shot. And if he gets a shot off, I don't give a fuck if it's from half court, behind the basket, in the third row. That fucking guy's going to have a chance to go in. So anyways, I thought he should have posted up much more his rookie year, because he could pass the ball. He could score over anybody. You trying to switch on the guy, it's a fucking joke. Any other point guard, he'll just take you in the post because he was heavy. He wasn't as strong, but the motherfucker was heavy. And, he's a big dude.
So you're factoring over Giannis, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Just because he controls the ball. Like in today's game, I think if you have an elite player that can handle the ball, And that's why I think he's a little bit. I would take him over Durant. I would take him over Jokic. Not those guys are great, and it's very close. But when you could control the ball like that, and you could go and pick and roll, and you can bring the ball up, and you can do all that, plus you can play off the ball and post up, that you'll have more impact in the game than those other guys will.
Yep. Yeah, I understand. I think I'd edge with Luka right now. I think, yeah. Okay. But, yeah, I think you definitely can't disrespect Giannis and what he's done.
No, fuck no. No. They're very close.
Yeah, very close.
Top 5, in my opinion, is very close. All right, folks, last one. Now, we're talking about Dallas, and there's a lot of emphasis on the amount of threes they took, especially in that third quarter last game. I think they've taken something like 95 threes in the first 2 games. Okay, so that being said, if you're running the show for Dallas, Dallas should take less than 43-point shots a night to have a better chance of beating Golden State or would you go with the high 40s, early 50s, attempt wise for them going forward in the series?
Well, I looked it up. They shot 48 attempts in game 1 and 45 last game.
93, yep.
Yep. So
their average is 46, 47.
Yep. They shot 46% last game, 21 for 45. The problem was I don't know what they were in the first half, but it was above 50, 60%. And they were shooting the piss out of it and they went dry. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm not big on, I know our friend H-Bob, and he's big on a certain number of 3-point attempts per game. I'm more take what the defense gives you at times. So if you're Bertans and that's your thing, your feet set, you're wide open, you let that thing fly. But just to get them up at all costs, I'd still, I think there's still times where you can get a paint touch or attack the paint and maybe even attack the paint that one more time and go swing for an open 3. So
right, I
think it's a high number, but that's what's given them success throughout the year. Like they have those nights where they, arguably they should have won game 2 and they just completely dried up. But I mean, should they take less than 40? I'll just say fake news based on take what the defense gives you for the most part. I think a good number is around the 40s, but I'd edge over it. I think to beat Golden State, they're gonna need to shoot the ball well from 3, so they're gonna have to shoot a lot more threes. Not that they're shooting now. I think they have to shoot in the 40s to the mid 40s to late 40s in attempts. They just got to shoot it at a better clip. They got to be, which they did last game. They still lost. I'm still scratching my head. They shot 46% from 3 on a shitload of attempts and lost. But I definitely, who else is getting the paint for him though, bro? That's the thing. Like Luka's one. Bullock's not that guy. Finney-Smith, okay. Do you completely trust him trying to create and get into the paint? I'd trust him more shooting the feet set 3. Bertans, hell no. Kleber, I want him shooting that 3. So it's like, who else? Dinwiddie's probably the only guy. And Brunson. Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Luka are the only 3 guys I'd say, okay, but then other than that, the rest are feet set type guys, right? So I'd probably skew them more. I'd be comfortable in the 40s for 3s then, bro.
Yeah, I'd say fake news as well. Like I thought about it and I was like trying to play the numbers like, all right, so if you took 39 threes, right? Because I'm not a fan of like taking 12 threes, a 3-point shot. I know the value of a 3. I get it. But I think I'm with you. I'm just going to try to refine shot selection and be like, look, like let's stop the contested 3, especially early shot clock. Let's move the ball. Let's try to roll hard to the rim. If we can get in the paint, great. But I mean, if we're moving the ball, we're penetrating and kick into the corners or penetrate and kick into the wing, and then swing for 3s. We're good with that. And if we end up taking 45, it's great. I'm not with the whole, we got to take 55, 63s, whatever. There's not a number for me. Like I'm with you. Like I'm taking high quality and I don't really care.
Yeah. Some games it might be 50, some games it might be 30, right?
Yeah.
A question for you then. Yes. So then what do you say if Luka dribbles down and shoots a step back 3 early in the shot clock?
I'm saying take whatever the fuck you want to take.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing, right? That's where the analytics go out the window. Sometimes even your coaching philosophy, like, hey, we want to give up, the whole philosophy of give up a good shot to get a great shot, which is what every NBA coach preaches. But no, I'd rather have Luka take the good shot than give it up to a guy who, to get a great shot. So that's where it's tough. But
with Luka, to me, it's like shot selection. Hey, take whatever the fucking shot you want. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to continue to be in great shape. I want you to leave the fucking referees alone and just sort of not let that bother you. And then I just want you to I want you to give it a little more effort on the defensive side.
Which he has a little bit. The tail end of that. Once it became a media thing, where the infamous 2-0 for Phoenix, Devin Booker and Chris Paul were asked, "Are you guys targeting Luka Doncic?" and they smirked and then lost the series. That's when it shifted. I think it just lit a fire under him a little bit. And he doesn't need to be elite, and he can't. I don't think he can be elite because he's so much usage at the offensive end. He's not going to have any legs left. But I think he got to a point where he was consistent and average, and just be a live body and make a tough shot. You don't need to lock the world down. You don't need to, be Dennis Rodman or, whatever, Draymond Green. Just be solid. And I think he's done that. He's taken that next step where he's like, I need to be at a better level in the playoffs. It's kind of what we asked of Jason Tatum the last 3 years, right? He's finally done that. He's been a consistent defender now where you're like, we can't just blatantly pick on you because you're going to get lost, right? So, yeah, I totally agree. Just quickly, it's 62-47 at the half. For Miami. Shit. They squandered a bit of a lead. They were up by 20-something. Boston made a little late run, and Jason Tatum hit a 3 on the halftime buzzer to get it back to a respectable 15. So they're still in the game. Could have been much uglier, but not looking great for the Boston Celtics in Boston, Pro. I wonder if they can bring it back. We'll see. But that wraps up this pod, Pro. So appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for the support as usual. You know who we are.
Go get Fruity Pebbles. Go get yourself a box of Fruity Pebbles with the Nike logo on it.
Yeah, we might get some hate mail from old Cambridge now because of you, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah. She's got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. And you are a white man too.
Yeah. You think she'll put me in that class with that coach that she made fun of?
That's what I'm saying. You're just another white man. Another white man criticizing her. So, but you've got the weight to criticize her, right? He was criticizing.
Well, look, as a fellow big bone person, I can make fun of her like that because I'm in that category, so I'm good.
All right, Pro. See you next week.
See you next week.